Welcome to Future Trends, where we examine the latest stories reshaping tomorrow's international dynamics. This week's headlines: BRICS divisions over Iran war, global oil reserves deplete at record pace, parts of Somalia face famine risk for first time since 2022, Israel says most architects of October 7 attacks have been killed, Russian parliament approves law allowing Putin to invade other countries, and Meta employees protest mouse tracking. Starting with politics, US plans to indict Cuba's Raul Castro. The potential indictment of the 94-year-old former president of Cuba and brother of Fidel is expected to focus on the downing of aircraft. The US administration is seeking to potentially replace Cuba's current communist-run government. Latvian PM resigns after row over stray Ukrainian drone. Prime Minister Selina resigned after her coalition collapsed over stray Ukrainian drones that entered Latvian airspace. She had sacked her defense minister over the incident, prompting his party to withdraw coalition support. No casualties occurred, but residents criticized the delayed official response. Solomon Islands elect former China critic as prime minister. Opposition leader Matthew Whale won a parliamentary vote to become prime minister, defeating a rival 26-22. Australia welcomed the outcome amid ongoing regional competition with China. Whale previously criticised a 2022 China Security Pact, but has since softened his stance, leaving its future uncertain. US halts deployment of 4,000 troops to Poland. The Pentagon has cancelled plans to deploy 4,000 US-based troops to Poland as part of a broader plan to withdraw 5,000 soldiers from NATO territory in Germany. The decision was criticized by lawmakers from both major parties as Congress was neither notified nor consulted as required. BRICS talks show divisions over war in Iran. Top diplomats from BRICS nations, including rivals Iran and the United Arab Emirates, failed to issue a joint statement after a meeting in Delhi, leaving host India to release only a chair's statement that exposed their differences, saying there were differing views among some members as regards the situation in the West Asia, Middle East region. Tehran had wanted the grouping of emerging economies to condemn the US-Israeli war on Iran and accused US ally the UAE of direct involvement in military operations against it. Moving to stories in conflict, data shows the tide of war in Ukraine may be turning. Russia is starting to lose ground in Ukraine, according to an analysis by The Economist. Analysis of battlefield data and maps showed Russia has suffered small but sustained territorial losses, its first sustained net loss since October 2023. It estimates around 3% of its pre-war male population of fighting age has been killed or wounded. Ukraine has begun to claw back territory. Israel says most of the architects of October 7th attacks have been killed. Prime Minister Netanyahu said it is close to finishing a key war aim in Gaza, killing the planners of the October 7th attacks. It comes after Israel said it had killed senior Hamas commander Ezzedine al-Haddad in an airstrike as its campaign against the group's leadership continues. Israeli strikes have also targeted Hamas operatives in Lebanon, as well as senior Iran-backed Hezbollah commanders allied with the group. Drone strikes UAE nuclear plant. A drone strike sparked a fire on the edge of the United Arab Emirates' Seoul nuclear power plant.
No one was blamed, but it highlighted the risk of renewed war between US and Iran.
Russian parliament approves law allowing Putin to invade other countries. Putin used the argument of protecting Russian-speaking population and Russian citizens for both his invasion of eastern Ukraine and the unilateral annexation of Crimea in 2014, and Moscow's all-out war against Ukraine in early 2022. Russia's lawmakers have now passed a law formally authorizing the Kremlin to deploy troops abroad to protect Russian citizens, giving President Putin the authority in practice to invade foreign countries. Yemen government and Houthis agree to free 1,600 detainees. It was the largest prisoner swap of the country's 11-year civil war. A timeline for implementation has not been announced. Here's the latest in economics. Iran war triggers bond market falls to send yields rising worldwide. Fears are growing that the Iran war-driven price shock will force central banks to raise interest rates to contain the impact. The bond sell-off came as crude oil prices climbed, and the US-Chinese summit failed to deliver any breakthroughs toward ending the conflict. That's compounding worries sparked by back-to-back US government reports that revealed a sharp rise in consumer and wholesale prices, fueling speculation that the Federal Reserve and other central banks will need to shift to tightening monetary policy. UAE's new oil pipeline push to double export capacity, bypassing Hormuz. The existing Abu Dhabi crude oil pipeline, also known as the Habshan-Fujairah pipeline, can carry up to 1.8 million barrels per day and has proved crucial as the UAE seeks to maximize exports from the Gulf of Oman coast, just outside the strait. Construction of a second pipeline, which would add capacity for another 1.8 million barrels per day, is being fast-tracked and is expected to start operating next year. EU to ban Brazilian meat imports from September. The decision to remove Brazil from the list of countries that comply with EU food safety standards comes as the EU-Mercosur free trade agreement between the EU and Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay, and Uruguay provisionally entered into force on 1st May. The deal, which liberalizes trade of agri-product between both sides of the Atlantic, remains opposed by EU farmers, who fear that different production standards on both sides of the Atlantic will create unfair competition from Latin American imports. Iran war energy shock drives interest in biofuels across Asia. India has proposed letting vehicles run on 85% or even 100% ethanol and has banned all exports of sugar at least through September to ensure a local supply of sugar, but also to ensure enough raw material is available for ethanol blending. Producing corn, rice, and other grains for ethanol can take away from food and livestock needs. Indonesia and Malaysia are also pushing policies to increase fuel mixing with palm oil-based substitutes, though experts warn this could drive agricultural expansion and deforestation. Honda posts first annual loss of 2.7 billion after pullback from EVs. It was the Japanese automaker's first loss since 1957, as it took a multi-billion-dollar hit from scaling back its electric vehicle plans. Earnings were weighed down by more than $9 billion in restructuring charges and write-downs after a retrenchment of its EV strategy. Moving to news and development. Super El Niño most likely scenario by year-end. A Super El Niño could run from October 2026 to February 2027, according to a new forecast from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's Climate Prediction Center, and the humanitarian cost could be significant. El Niño is the warmer phase of the natural El Niño Southern Oscillation, ENSO, climate cycle, a periodic shift in the waters of the tropical Pacific Ocean that supercharges global temperatures, in turn impacting weather patterns and crops worldwide. Global oil reserves deplete at record pace. Global reserve depletions for the full year could reach up to 2.6 million barrels per day on average, up from its pre-war estimate of 300,000. Further price rises are coming for gasoline, jet fuel, and other refined products. In addition to the shortfall of crude oil, attacks on refineries in the Middle East by Iran and in Russia by Ukraine have knocked out about 9% of global refining capacity. Ebola outbreak is a global health emergency. The World Health Organization said that it could be a much larger outbreak than what is currently being identified and reported, but does not meet the criteria of a pandemic emergency. An Ebola outbreak in eastern DR Congo's Ituri province has recorded around 246 cases and 65 deaths, primarily in gold mining towns. No proven cure exists, and fatality rates average 50%. Parts of Somalia face famine risk for first time since 2022. One of the world's most food-insecure nations because of frequent drought, conflict, and poverty, Somalia last experienced famine in 2011, when around 250,000 people died, and came close in 2017 and 2022. Areas of southern Somalia are currently at risk of famine. Russian cargo ships sunk off Spain carried nuclear reactors for North Korea. Spanish investigators have discovered that the Russian cargo ship that sank in the Mediterranean in 2024, originally believed to be part of a weapons retrieval mission to Syria, was secretly carrying nuclear reactor components bound for North Korea. Finally, the latest in social. Meta employees protest mouse tracking tech. Employees view the introduction of mouse tracking software as helping design their own bot replacements. It is the most visible sign to date of a rising labor movement inside the social media giant, as at least some staffers begin to channel their anger over the company's plans to reshape its workforce around AI. Meta said staff mouse tracking would help provide training examples as it seeks to build agents to help users complete everyday tasks using computers. Neanderthals used stone drills to treat cavities 59,000 years ago. A single molar tooth, which was unearthed in a cave in southern Siberia, features a deep hole that appears to have been created using a sharp, thin stone tool during the lifetime of the tooth's owner. How chewing more boosts your brain, while chewing more improves digestion and helps release nutrients in food, allowing our bodies to absorb them more effectively. Research suggests it can also boost our brains and even help fend off Alzheimer's. Not only does chewing increase saliva production and the amount of digestive enzymes like amylase that help break down food, it also triggers the gut and pancreas to secrete juices that will help process food further. Executions worldwide hit 40-year high. At least 707 people are known to have been put to death. That marks a 78% jump from 2024 and is the highest figure Amnesty has recorded since 1981, when 3,191 executions were logged. U.S. man convicted of running secret Chinese police station in NYC. Lu Jianwang, 64, has been convicted of helping run what has been described as the first known secret police station in the U.S. on behalf of the Chinese government. At least 100 such stations have been reported across 53 countries, with rights groups accusing China of using the outposts to threaten and monitor Chinese nationals abroad. China has denied the outposts are police stations, saying they are providing administrative services to nationals overseas. That's your Future Trends update for this week. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time with more stories reshaping our world.